New polling of Palestinians shows growing support for Hamas, even in parts of the devastated Gaza Strip. Only 10% of those polled said Hamas had committed war crimes. The polling was conducted during the week-long ceasefire that ended December 1st. Nearly 90% of Palestinians want President Mahmoud Abbas to resign. He leads the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority, which the Biden administration has said should eventually assume control of Gaza, something Israel does not want to see. Joining me now from Jerusalem is Caroline Glick, senior contributing editor for the Jewish News Syndicate. Thank you for your time, as always. Let's start there in the West Bank and what exactly is happening and the desire from Palestinians about what a post-war Gaza looks like.
So we are facing a situation in the West Bank where we have an American-trained army from the Palestinian Authority with American arms, American munitions, and they are capable of causing devastating harm on Israel. And what unfortunately we've seen is that the levels of support among the Palestinians in these areas for Hamas is even higher than it is in Gaza. And they all are also unified around the concept that Israel has to be annihilated. So it's really a tinderbox in that area. And the idea that the Palestinian Authority, none of whose leaders has condemned in any way, shape, or form the atrocities of October 7th, can be trusted to take over Gaza and form some sort of governing structure that won't be terrorists is a fantasy. It's completely delusional, and yet that is the policy that the Biden administration is advancing and demanding that Israel accept.
You have also, Caroline, expressed concern that the Biden administration is exerting too much pressure on Israel, demanding they do one thing and not another. What should the role of the U.S., in your eyes, be during this conflict?
Look, I mean, when the United States was accused in the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, that, let's remember, were thousands and thousands of miles from home, of overdoing it, of causing civilian casualties. Israel, like every like-minded allied country, stood by the United States and acknowledged the basic fact that when terrorists use civilians as human shields in the war zone, that civilian casualties are the fault of the terrorists against whom the United States at the time and Israel today is fighting a just and lawful war. And we would expect the same consideration from the United States. I mean, the spokesman for the National Security Council, James Kirby, said just yesterday that Israel is doing more to protect civilians in Gaza than the United States ever did. So given that they acknowledge this fact, we would expect them to respect our operational model and recognize that, of course, we're operating in accordance with the laws of war. We always do. We never have done anything other than that, and treat us with the respect that we should expect.
Still, support for Israel's tactics on the ground militarily are waning internationally, and this adding fuel to the fire. There have been concerns over Israel's military conduct, videos of Israeli soldiers in Gaza destroying food, rummaging through homes, the claims that Israel's military deployed white phosphorus along the border with Lebanon, which would be a violation of international law. What is Israel saying about these allegations?
I mean, look, the white phosphorus that Israel deployed was done in accordance with the laws of war, and the United States acknowledged that as well. I mean, they take anything that we do and they say it's illegal because, from the perspective of Israel's enemies in the UN and other places, it's illegal for us to defend ourselves. So if it's illegal for us to defend ourselves because they say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, then any tactic that Israel takes, they're going to say is a war crime. But we know that that's not true. And, the problem is that we end up having to dispel the allegations against us on each and every one of the occasions, and we always do, but it takes a lot less time to spread a lie and a slander than it does to dispel it. We have an expression in Hebrew that says, go prove that you don't have a sister. And that's basically what we're being called upon to do multiple times a day. And what we really need to do is prosecute this war so that we can annihilate this jihadist organization that, as the memory study showed, is completely unified around the idea that not only do they want to annihilate Israel, but they want to annihilate Jewish people all over the world. And as part of the global jihad, they want to destroy the United States and rule the world in the name of their version of jihadist Islam.
Is it wrong, though, Carolyn, to hold Israel to a higher moral standard, that they can't stoop to the level that the terrorists have in some of the conduct that's being alleged, even flooding some of the tunnels with seawater to try to flesh out Hamas?
Again, that's legal. But again, it's not that they're holding Israel to a higher standard than you would hold the Hamas Nazis to. It's that Israel is being held to an imaginary standard that no other nation on the face of the planet is held to. It's a model of perfection that no human being, no mere moral can possibly ever aspire to or achieve. And when Israel doesn't achieve that lofty standard, then we're accused of breaking the rules of war. But none of this is true.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.